Maryland football's regular season has come to a close, and as the Terps get ready to go bowling, it's time to reflect on the 2022 season and look at the future of the program here on the Left Bench in Focus.
We had guys step up in different positions.
What helps is the guys around me, the guys that have been here through pretty much everything. They know kind of how much I've been through.
Welcome everyone to the Left Bench in Focus, presented by Terps and Sports Central. I'm Jonas, that's Nathan Schwartz, and we're happy to be here for the last In Focus show of the year, talking all things Maryland football.
That's right, Jonas, and over the course of the season, the Terps have experienced a lot of ups and downs and played in some pretty meaningful games. But let's start with their most recent matchup with Rutgers in the regular season finale. Maryland came into Saturday's Senior Day game against Rutgers on a 3-game losing skid, but picked the perfect time to finally right the ship on both sides of the ball. Maryland started off slow with fumbles on their first 2 drives, but the second frame started off strong for the Terps, as Roman Hemby found the end zone to give Maryland a 7-0 lead. From that point on, the offense could not be stopped, especially Hemby, who tacked 2 more scores by the end of the third quarter, giving him his second hat trick of the season. And it wasn't just Hemby dominating the Scarlet Knights, as Jayshon Jones also got heavily involved on his senior day. Jones collected career highs in both receptions and yards, finishing the day with 9 catches for 152 yards and a score. The 27-yard touchdown catch by Jones wasn't just any ordinary score, because it added to the legacy of Taulia Tagovailoa. It was Leah's 50th touchdown pass as a Terp, moving him into first place in Maryland history. The potent Terps offense may get the glory, but Brian Williams' defense balled out, saving their best game of the season for last. The Terps held Rutgers to only 135 yards of total offense en route to Maryland's first shutout since joining the Big Ten. The complete domination by Maryland was more than enough to end their 3-game losing skid, as the Terps blew out Rutgers 37-0. Here's Tagovailoa and Jones after the win.
We feel like if we do our job, then we can throw the ball, run the ball against anyone. And I think today, it was pretty balanced with our run game and our passing game. We had guys step up in different positions and execute really well. And yeah, I think the biggest thing is we won the game.
What helps is the guys around me, the guys that have been here through pretty much everything. They know kind of how much I've been through and how much just playing like that means to me. And that's what kind of gives me my juice. Is like just I sit back and I see it, and I didn't realize it was that big of a game. But like they were feeding me, and I was just kind of going with the flow. And when they announced it, the guys all knew like how much that meant to me. So it was a pretty good moment.
Nate mentioned the defense's stellar performance on Saturday, but you may remember that side of the ball being somewhat of a question mark coming into the season. For a number of reasons, Maryland's secondary welcomed the return of cornerback Deonte Banks this year, who underwent shoulder surgery and missed the majority of 2021. Kevin McNulty has more.
For Deonte Banks, football and life are synonyms.
If you know me, you would know like Tay plays football. Like that's football is him. That's what he do.
So what happens when football is taken away?
I ain't never had this before, so it's like, this is new to me. So it's like, next time I get a chance to get out here, I'm putting everything into it. Like,
Banks suffered a season-ending shoulder injury in Week 2 of the 2021 season, sidelining him for the rest of his junior year, including Maryland's victory in the Pinstripe Bowl.
How tough was it to watch him have so much success, finish 7-6, win the bowl, and not be on the field for it?
I wouldn't say it was tough, because like I motivate all my guys to like just to be the best that we can be every day. So like I feel like when we was winning, it's just a plus for my guys to be good. Like.
But in 2022, he got to be a part of it, and a big part at that. Banks started all 12 regular season games for the Terps, locking down some of the best receivers in the country.
For me to like be out a whole year kind of like mess with me, like, and I ain't really like it. So now I'm back, like, I'm just enjoying it forever. I'm just enjoying it. I love being out there with my guys, and I love playing football.
Banks finished the regular season with 38 tackles, 8 pass breakups, and perhaps the highlight of his year, a crucial interception at Indiana.
It felt good. It felt real good. Like, it just felt like I worked for this. All the rehab I put in, all the workouts, summer camp. It just like, felt like it was my time to get one.
Besides his family, Tay's teammates were his main motivation to get back out on the field.
They always make sure I'm straight. And I feel like we got a close bond, on and off the field. So like, it's like we all hold each other accountable to make sure we come back right and we better.
You know, in the safety room, people are giving like me and Trader high praise, but that position is really easy when you got a shutdown corner like Banks over there.
There's no doubt Banks provided a big boost to the Terps secondary this season, and to all their locker room celebrations.
Yeah, he's the one leading it, man. I mean, he's the loudest in the room, and I mean, he's a fun guy to be around, so yeah, gotta love it.
And Jonas, when a player like Banks goes down, it's usually pretty easy to tell how much of an impact they had, and this was no different. Banks had a massive impact on the team this season.
Yeah, I mean, this secondary, look how good it's playing this year, and we saw it without him last year. He's a significant factor. Coach Loxley is super happy to have him this season.
Certainly, and he played a massive role. Defense would not have been the same without him this year. Now, looking back on the season as a whole, the Terps saw their wins and losses come in bunches, a common theme for the program in Mike Loxley's tenure. Maryland started off the season by sweeping its out-of-conference opponents, dominating both Buffalo and Charlotte, and grinding out a 34-27 win against SMU back on September 17th. Then came a bit of a back-and-forth stretch, which started in the Big House. The Terps gave Michigan some problems, but ultimately fell to the Wolverines. Maryland picked up a statement win over Michigan State to start off October, but then came on a losing end of a winnable game against the Big Ten West champs, Purdue. Loxley's squad became bowl eligible after picking up wins against both Indiana and Northwestern, but after the bye, the real struggles began. Maryland dropped 3 in a row to Wisconsin, Penn State, and Ohio State, with the matchup against the Buckeyes being the only one where the game was even close. With one game left against Rutgers, the Terps desperately needed a win to end the season on a high note, and they did just that. The 37-0 shutout win over the Scarlet Knights was good enough to give the Terps their 7th win of the season, a win that clinched Maryland's first winning regular season since 2014.
This year's win against Rutgers is very similar to the football team's season finale last year when their win against the Scarlet Knights clinched Maryland's first bowl game since 2016. That was the New Era Pinstripe Bowl, where Maryland traveled to the Bronx to face off against Virginia Tech at Yankee Stadium. And it was all Maryland all day, right from the start, as Tarheeb Still took a Virginia Tech punt 92 yards to the house to put Maryland up 7-0. That was before the offense even took the field. Virginia Tech responded with a field goal, but Talia Tagovailoa threw a dime to Darryl Jones down the sideline for Maryland's second touchdown of the game. That Terps touchdown was scored while ESPN was interviewing Virginia Tech's newly hired head coach, Brent Pry, live on air. Ouch. Talia ended the day with 265 yards and 2 touchdowns, but the Terps also dominated on the ground, totaling 3 rushing touchdowns and 206 rushing yards from 5 different players. The Terps defense was on fire too, not allowing a score in the second half. Now Indianapolis Colts safety Nick Cross even forced a fumble on a sack that led to a Terps defensive touchdown. The Terps were just too much for the Hokies on both sides of the ball. In the end, Maryland won it 54-10, the program's first bowl game win in over a decade.
Of course, the Pinstripe Bowl was a huge step forward for the program last year, but now they have a chance to win back-to-back bowl games for the first time in nearly 20 years.
Sam Jane is here to take a look at where the Terps could be headed at the end of December and which other Big Ten teams are going bowling. Sam?
Yeah, guys, a lot to look at when it comes to the state of the Big Ten bowl season, and that includes Maryland. The Big Ten has 9 representatives this year, which is a little bit less than last year when the conference had 10 teams and went 6-4, aided by Maryland's win in the Pinstripe Bowl. So, as we take a look at some bowl projections across the web, here are some potential matchups that are intriguing, starting with the Terps. The Terps obviously finished the year off with 7 wins, which placed them in various different bowl games across projections. But CBS Sports projects that the Terps to take on a historic program, Oklahoma, in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. Maryland would surely relish a chance to beat a premier opponent in a bowl game and to reach their highest win total in the Mike Loxley era. Boomer Sooner has had a down year as new head coach Brett Venables struggled to string together wins in Norman. The Sooners finished with 6 wins and lost to rivals Texas and Texas Tech. But quarterback Dylan Gabriel leads a dynamic offense, one that ranks 24th in the country in yards per game. He's largely aided by wide receiver Marvin Mims, who's had a spectacular year for the Sooners. Another intriguing projection in the Big Ten involves a Maryland rival, a team that is looking at a New Year's Six Bowl. Penn State lost their 2 biggest games of the year to Ohio State and Michigan, but the Nittany Lions still had a great season, finishing 10-2 on the year. In a Sports Illustrated Bowl projection, they would travel to Miami to take on Tennessee in the Orange Bowl. What an intriguing matchup that would be. Penn State's defense would face a great test in the Tennessee offense, which leads the nation in points per game. Yet the Volunteers would be without star quarterback Hendon Hooker, who tore his ACL in a loss to South Carolina. Joe Milton replaced him, and he's continued with explosive plays for the Volunteers, as you can see right here. This could be a great battle between 2 historic programs in an esteemed New Year's Six Bowl. The other projection worth noting is the ReliaQuest Bowl in Tampa. Jerry Palm from CBS Sports has Illinois taking on South Carolina in a matchup of great offense versus great defense. The Fighting Illini have to be disappointed that they didn't win the Big Ten West this year and represent them in Indianapolis, but they did finish with an impressive 8-4 record. Their defense is the main reason why, as they rank 3rd in the nation in points allowed. Quarterback Devin Witherspoon is one of the top corners in the country according to many projections, and he's a projected top pick in this year's NFL Draft. Witherspoon will face a tough test in Spencer Rattler and the Gamecock offense. South Carolina is one of the hottest teams in the country, as the Gamecocks have knocked off Tennessee and Clemson in back-to-back weeks. Rattler threw for 798 yards against the 2 top 10 teams. So if these two matched up, it would be an awesome show, not only for NFL scouts, but fans alike. With all these different projections, guys, it'll be super interesting to see how the different teams shake out and which bowl game the Terps will travel to.
Yeah, a lot of good options there, and I know for Maryland in particular, Leah said after the game on Saturday against Rutgers that he wanted to play somewhere warm, so if they were able to get the guaranteed rate bowl in Phoenix, that would be great for Leah and the Terps.
Yeah, I mean, bowl season is some of the most fun you see on TV all year. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sam, so much for coming on. And stay right here, because when we come back, we will be joined by 2 very special guests to analyze this season and give out some awards.
And we'll also crown our top 5 plays of the season. Don't go anywhere.
Jason, let's go see your room.
That's not right. How was it? Is it good?
Welcome back to the Left Bench in Focus, brought to you by Terps and Sports Central. And now that Maryland football has played its last regular season game, it's time to reflect on the season and hand out some awards.
That's right, Nate. And to help us do that, we've brought on our friends Brandon Schwartzberg and Logan Hill, the editors at terpandsportscentral.com. Guys, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having us. It is a true honor. I am very grateful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, also very humble, obviously.
Yes,
yeah, Editor-in-Chief Brandon Schwartzberg, your first time here on the Left Bench in Focus or the Left Bench TV. Welcome. Great to have you here.
It was a wait. It was a wait, I'll say that, but I'm glad.
This is an exciting day. This is a very exciting day.
A long wait, but worth it. So we just have a couple questions for you guys before we get started with the awards. So let's get right into that. We'll start with the Terps offense. So coming into the year, a lot of expectations for this offense. You had Ja'Shawn Jones, Dante Demas, Rakim Jarrett, Jacob Copeland, so many weapons offensively. Did they live up to those expectations this year, or did they fall a little bit short?
That's a great question. I would personally say that maybe they did fall short because there were so many different mouths to feed, and you were just expecting after last year, that year that Talia had, just to kind of do the same. And we didn't quite see that this year. They won a lot of games. They had some really good days on offense, but they also had some very pitiful ones. So at the end of the day, when there were so many different players that could have stood out, I think every week you didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, I think Talia really tried to spread the wealth on offense. You saw Corey Deitzes get involved early, even CJ Dupree towards the end, and then you had the receivers, as you mentioned, Rakim Jarrett, Ja'Shawn Jones, Dante Demas, Jacob Copeland. It was a lot of mouths to feed, and I just think Talia did the best he could to feed everyone, but doing so, it really limited the capabilities of each weapon.
Yeah, and guys, the most important part of the schedule every year when playing in the Big Ten is when you start facing off against these juggernauts in the schedule. And I mean, Maryland had some impressive games against Michigan, against Ohio State. They got blown out by Penn State. What did you think of their performances against the top teams in the Big Ten?
I mean, I think that was the thing that Mike Locksley has been looking for. Obviously, they didn't win either of those games this year, but when they played those opponents last year, they were both major blowouts pretty much from the first quarter on. And they played them both to what worked out to be a touchdown game. I mean, that late touchdown against Ohio State on the fumble recovery in the end zone makes that a 13-point game. But they put together two of their best games all year against number 2 and number 3 of the country.
Yeah, and I think against Ohio State, it was especially impressive considering how poor Talia and the whole offense looked against Penn State, against Wisconsin. He was sacked 12 times total. He completed less than 50% of his passes. But then against Ohio State and Michigan, he combined for 500 yards, 3 touchdowns. And I just think seeing the way he performed, like Logan said, it was a big step up from last year. And I just think the next step for Locksley for this offense is to win against these top-tier teams and just have the same consistency against those schools as you can have against Penn State, against Wisconsin, against Purdue, the teams that they lost to otherwise in the Big Ten.
Yeah, the big thing that stuck out to me was in the Wisconsin and the Penn State game how much they struggled. And a lot of that you can attribute to the weather. But still it seemed like they had their moments, right? They had the Michigan, they had the Ohio State performances, but still really struggled. And that trend just seems to be continuing. There's less of that trend, but I think they still need to keep building that moving forward. 7 wins in the regular season this year. They should be able to move that forward. But now that we're done with the questions, we're going to get into the awards. So the 4 of us got together before the show and came up with 5 awards that we are going to crown the Maryland football team. And we're going to start with the offensive MVP. And the 4 of us are going to award that to Talia Tagovailoa, Maryland's redshirt junior quarterback, a record-breaking season. Guys, what can we say about Leah's performance this year?
Well, it feels cliche to give that award to the quarterback, and his numbers weren't as gaudy this year as they were a season ago, but he did cut down his interceptions. He had 11 a season ago and just 6 this year. And I wanted to specifically highlight those games against the Buckeyes and the Wolverines. 500 total yards passing, 4 total touchdowns in those 2 games. He showed up in the big moments. I mean, there was that putrid stretch where they played Wisconsin, where they played Penn State, and nobody looked good. But in their biggest games this season, Talia came to play.
Yeah, and I think the way he battled through injuries, I mean, we saw him. He got hurt originally against Michigan, then had to miss a game later, and just wasn't the same against Penn State and against Wisconsin. And so to see him against Ohio State, it was extremely impressive. He finished with a 147.2 passer efficiency rating, which was 5th best in the Big Ten, finished 3rd in the conference in passing yards. And so I just think it was a very impressive season from him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he also, something we've mentioned is he spread the rock around really, really well. Maryland, everyone at Maryland got a little bit, and a huge credit to Talia Tagovailoa for doing that. Let's move on to our defensive MVP. We have Jayshawn Barham, the freshman. He was all over the field this year. What did we see from him?
He's a monster. I mean, a true freshman, and he looked like he's played 30 college games out there. The one moment that stuck out to me was during the Rutgers game. I watched that one on TV, and he was QB spine and just immediately comes down and makes a big hit on the quarterback. He just looks like he is pro-ready, and he's a true freshman, and that's just crazy to say.
Yeah, I think he was versatile all over the field. He was 3rd on the team with 54 tackles. He had 4 sacks, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery. So he was doing everything in the middle of that defense.
Yeah, those 4 sacks led the team. Big games for him were Purdue, and you mentioned, Logan, the Rutgers game. He was just all over the place. It really elevated the entire defense. Ruben Hippolyte was out for a lot of the season with an injury. Jayshawn Barham stepped up in his place and made the most of his opportunity as a freshman.
Yeah, and so our next award is going to go to Freshman of the Year. And that one, while we didn't give it to Jayshawn Barham, we gave it to Roman Hemby, Terps running back. What do you guys have to say about him?
Yeah, I think that Hemby was superb this year as the running back for the Terps. He led the charge. He finished with almost 1,000 rushing yards. He ran for a 5.6 yards per carry average. Both were top 10 in the Big Ten. I just think that he was a great complement to the passing game. And especially, there were a lot of questions coming in about the rushing attack. And so I think he stepped in early, and he stepped in all throughout the season.
Yeah, Brandon, exactly what I was going to say. You know, stepping up as a freshman is extremely impressive. I'm so impressed with Hemby's energy. He runs with so much energy, so much violence, and he's just so strong. It's something so impressive to see from someone so young, so early in their time in the program.
And you want to talk about a guy that makes big plays? Roman Hemby is the guy that's going to make big plays, and he did all throughout the year. 2 games with 3 touchdowns. He had a 2-touchdown performance in his first career start back all the way in week 1 against Buffalo, averaged 5.6 yards per carry. This guy did it all for the Terps offense. I don't think they perform as well as they did offensively without the performance of Hemby this year.
Yeah, and our next award is going to be Most Improved, and we are going to give that to Bo Braid.
This guy's a thumper. Just all over, stalwart in the back half of that Maryland defense. He jumped off the tape all year, led the team, tied for the team lead in interceptions and forced fumbles, and he loved to hit. So when you've got somebody coming down from that safety spot that can just deliver the big hit, Sean Taylor-esque big hit, can't do much better than that back there.
Yeah, he was a leader on this defense. This secondary deserves a ton of credit, and Bo Braid deserves a ton of credit for that leadership role, leading the team in tackles. Impressive stuff from someone.
Yeah, 78 tackles. 4 of those were tackles for losses. Came on cornerback blitzes a lot. Played a huge role, really as kind of a box linebacker at times. He really tried to fill gaps when he could in the run game. Played stellar defense and coverage. Of course, had the interceptions against SMU and Northwestern. The Northwestern one was the game sealer when he had the gritty at the end. So a fun player to have on the defense, and he was one of the better players on the team this year.
It was a good gritty, too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Could use some work, though. Could use some work. And so now we're ready to give our 5th and final award. And this one's a bit untraditional. It's going to go to an unsung hero. And if you don't know what that means, that's a player that maybe didn't have the biggest impact, maybe doesn't get the most recognition, but still makes a significant contribution to the team. And that award for us is going to Corey Dyches, who did not get a lot of love this year from the national media, but certainly played a major role in this Terps offense.
For sure, Nate. And this was probably the hardest award we had to pick. Dyches lit it up to start the year, was really a favorite target of Talia's, and he kind of disappeared down the stretch. C.J. Dupree took away some of those targets, and then what does he do? He finishes out with 5 catches and almost 60 yards to end the season. Just a great receiving target amongst a whole closet of them.
Yeah, he finished 3rd on the team in catches and in yards, and then he finished tied for 2nd in touchdowns with 3, and so I just think he was the safe blanket for Talia. Whenever he needed a weapon to go to, he looked for him, and just his run against Purdue was something special.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk about that play in a second. I think that play against Purdue really embodies who Corey Dyches was for this team, someone that never gives up, someone that provides when they need it, especially from him. I was really impressed with what he did this season.
Yeah, put it all on the line. A-plus effort from Dyches every single time you saw him. Whenever they needed a crucial play, Corey Dyches was the one to make that play. A lot of 4th down and 3rd down catches this year. Great blocking in the running game as well, so couldn't have been a better guy to pick this award. So, well, all right, Brandon, Logan, it's been an absolute blast having you guys on. Brandon, great job on the debut. Logan, you've been here before. Nothing different for you, but thank you guys so much for coming on. This was fantastic.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, guys.
And make sure to be on the lookout for Brandon and Logan's coverage on the Maryland's bowl game at TerrapinSportsCentral.com.
And now it's time for what you've all been waiting for, our top 5 plays of the year. Jonas, start us off.
Starting off at number 5, it's Tolia Tagovailoa finding Jayshon Jones in the middle of the end zone for Tolia's record-breaking 50th touchdown as a Terp. That's the most in program history. An outstanding throw from Tolia to cement himself in Maryland history.
Now at number 4, it's the play we just talked about a minute ago. It's Bo Braid's game-sealing interception against Northwestern, with his best attempt at the gritty as the celebration. The gritty could use some work, but the interception was phenomenal. Just look at the over-the-shoulder grab by Braid.
At number 3, it's tight end C.J. Dupree taking flight to hurdle an Ohio State defender down the sideline. Dupree is 6'5", 260 pounds, but he can really get up there when he wants to. What an athletic play.
Coming in at number 2, it's Rakim Jarrett showing off his footwork with some toe drag swag against Charlotte. A great ball from Leah, but just an unbelievable concentration from Jarrett.
And our number 1 play of the season comes from Corey Dyches with the 68-yard touchdown catch. Purdue defenders get to him, but Dyches just refuses to go down, diving for the end zone with a Purdue player on his back. That got the Maryland crowd excited. Look at that dive. What an athletic play from Dyches.
And what a great play to have as our number 1
Absolutely.
play of the year. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Left Bench in Focus. Be sure to keep up with all of Terrapin Sports Central's coverage on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and online at TerrapinSportsCentral.com.
Ricky Podgorski and Maggie McGuigan will be behind the desk next week to talk all things Maryland sports for our last episode of the Left Bench show this calendar year.
We'll see you next time.